Greetings, Internet. HeiseNerd here, and this is HeiseNerd Speaks. This is a new program where I'm going to show off my face for radio, just sitting in front of a mic and kind of speaking my mind about a few things. Tonight, we are going to talk first about Gamestop Powerpass. We're also going to talk about Disney closing their deal with Fox possibly soon. And we will finish off with the Megaman 11 drop, just talking about a few of these things. All right, so starting off, we're going to talk about GameStop Powerpass. This was announced back in October, and apparently it has since dropped. I haven't been in a GameStop to really check it out yet. Basically, the details are that GameStop is starting a rental service within their brick and mortar stores. Basically what it is you're going to pay a $60 fee up front, which is going to get you the Power Pass for 6 months. With the Power Pass, you are able to take out one pre-owned game of choice at a time, keep it as long as you want during the 6-month period, and also at the end of the 6-month period, you'll also get to choose a pre-owned game to keep. Just a few quick thoughts on this. Number one, I think that this is kind of a desperate move on the part of GameStop. I mean, they've had some waning sales numbers over the last few years, and that's just understandable. I mean, they've made some bonehead decisions on how they want to push stuff. But I mean, aside from that, I mean, digital release gaming is starting to really rise up. Particular on the PC side of things. I mean, in my own opinion, I pretty much I don't console game near as much as I used to. I mean, obviously my kids do. PC is really where I do a lot of my gaming. And as a Steam user, I mean, I could pick up games for far cheaper than I'm going to find them pre-owned, especially if I wait for sales. Sales are just ridiculous on there. I mean, you have Humble Bundle. My goodness, you have Humble Bundle as an option too. I mean, you're going to be able to get packs of games. Indie gaming kind of taking a rise too. I mean, most indie games are going to be a lot cheaper too. I think that they're also feeling a little bit of pressure since Xbox has kind of put out their monthly fee for games. I mean, with both Microsoft and Sony, I mean, with their gold memberships and with the PSN membership, I mean, if you have PS Plus or Gold, you're going to get free games every month anyway. Not your choice of game, of course, but you know, I think that there's just a lot of things that are kind of factoring into this. Also, I think GameStop's kind of also trying to do what they can to make some extra revenue. I mean, if you walk into a GameStop now, it's basically a Hot Topic in the first third of the store. After they bought ThinkGeek, they are kind of just really going all out with the collectibles and the merch, and I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. I think some of that stuff is kind of cool, but I don't know. I kind of liked going into GameStop and kind of browsing through games. Now I feel like I kind of have a limited amount of that going on. I'm also kind of interested to see where they're going to go with this on the front of how they're going to push it. Are they going to expect so many Power Pass subscriptions a month out of their employees, just like they do with the magazine subscription and stuff? Maybe this is going to take place of the magazine subscription. I mean, a printed media magazine. I mean, you're even getting the choice of the online one when you were doing it anyway, too. Most people aren't getting this because of the magazine. They're getting it because of the perk of getting games for a cheaper price. But I'm just curious to see how this is going to work for them. Honestly, in my opinion, I kind of like the idea. I think it's pretty much going to pay for itself out of the fact that you are able to pick out a pre-owned game to keep at the end of the cycle. I mean, now granted, most games are $60 at release. Now, if you take into consideration when they're at pre-owned price, they're usually around $55 at GameStop. So I mean, it's $5 more, and you're gonna get it. You know, you're gonna get 6 months of whatever game you want to play during that time. And now the only thing I'm a little bit concerned about is, I mean, you're gonna have. How limited is the selection going to be? If there's a lot of people doing this and it takes off, how are they going to keep up with that? I think, and I don't know all the details. I haven't read into it too much, but I think it would be good if you're able to use this at any GameStop. Particularly, I mean, if you're in a larger metropolitan area, you're going to have a large number of GameStops to choose between within, you know, your radius. I mean, just in my town alone, we have two, and obviously we have probably, you know, I could probably go off of a half a dozen that are within an hour too. So I mean, I've got plenty of choices if I'm able to do that. I'm not sure if you're only able to rent from your home store. I think it would be good if you had the opportunity to be able to go to any of them, though. I think that this is going to put the hurt on GameFly. Now I've used GameFly, and I'm okay with it. Again, GameFly kind of suffers from the same problem that I was a little bit worried about with GameStop, is that you want a newer release. It's harder to get that right out the gate. They have a limited amount, and this is a pretty big online company, so I would think that they would have a pretty good selection, or at least a good number of the newer titles. And it seems to me like I think we're having a little trouble with that, but I'm hoping maybe GameStop keeps enough demand. I mean, with it being pre-owned, it's really dependent upon what people are going to trade in. So you are going to have a limited number of those newer titles. But I think it will hurt GameFly just because there isn't the waiting period between when you've mailed a game back in and when the new one arrives. So, I mean, I always resorted to doing 2 out at a time with GameFly, just because of the fact that at least I'd had one game and I'd send the other back, so that way I didn't have like that lull of period between games. So, yeah. I really am just curious to see how it changes the game for this company, no pun intended, and for competitors like mom and pop stores. The mom and pop stores, I'm just a little bit concerned about. They aren't going to be able to offer the same kind of service. I think that they're going to have to lower prices probably to just keep up, or something. I'm not entirely sure. I used to work for a mom and pop for several years, and there were a few things that kind of, concerned me throughout my run. Particularly, I was with the company during the whole, DRM debacle with Xbox, with Microsoft during the Xbox One's reveal. And, we were on edge. We didn't know what was going to happen because, I mean, if we couldn't sell Xbox One games, I mean, and we didn't know about Sony making a decision yet either. If either of them would have went completely DRM, we'd have been screwed. But, but I think this is going to be a good idea, and I look forward to seeing what's going to happen just in the future with GameStop in this. It'll be fun. All right, moving on. We're going to talk about Disney getting really close to closing a deal with Fox. So over the last few weeks, if anybody's been in the news, it's kind of a big deal, especially if you kind of follow pop culture news. Disney is been in talks with 21st Century Fox to pretty much almost buy them out. I think the only thing they wouldn't be getting is the news and sports divisions, which honestly aren't probably what Disney is interested in anyway. But the latest news is that as of today, a deal could possibly hit by next week. Now, this is on the heels of us hearing recently that it may not be happening, and Comcast possibly being a front runner. But now it seems like Disney is closer than ever to getting this. So let's just talk about what this means for us and for Disney. Number one, this pretty much means all of the major franchises and all of the major character arcs in the Marvel universe now will be possible in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, of course, Spider-Man still is owned by Sony, and they don't have everything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and there's all the red tape that goes along with that. The future will only tell us where that's going to go. I wholeheartedly believe that there will be a day when Sony just says, you know what, Marvel, you can have it. But that's for another day. But if we get 20th Century Fox, that means the X-Men and Fantastic Four franchises and their characters make their way back to Marvel and can be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let me talk, I guess, a little bit about what I want to see with that. Now, following Avengers 4, the horizon's pretty much open. We don't really have a lot slated, but they've talked about a large number of movies that they're going to be doing. They haven't said names, they haven't dropped anything, but the idea of having the X-Men open, there are a lot of possibilities with that. There's a lot of characters there. And I think it would serve best with a Fantastic Four and X-Men to just do a hard reboot of both of these franchises. I understand that Hugh Jackman is interested in being in this Marvel Cinematic Universe as Wolverine. I loved Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Don't get me wrong, Hugh Jackman, to me, just like Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man, Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. It'll be a hard sell to get me hooked on anybody else, but I think that it's going to be necessary. It's just the same sort of situation as Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. There's only so long that these actors are going to do this. And, you know, the characters are aging, and it's kind of a situation where we should pass the torch on. Or, I mean, in this case, since that, you know, X-Men have not been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think the reboot would work well. And I know that they got the soft reboot with Days of Future Past, but I think we just need to see just hard reboot, start over, and it'll be interesting how the idea of mutants finally just comes out of nowhere in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, considering that we have been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for however many years. And, of course, you're going to have mutants who have aged for, you know, a few years and everything. I mean, they're just going to come out of the woodwork. I mean, that's a little concerning. But I don't know. I think a reboot would be a good idea. I think that just some new talent would be a good fit. And I think it would be a really good use of Phase 4 to kind of introduce some. And of course, some of these are going to get solo films. Of course, Wolverine's going to get solo films. I could see that. Now, that being said, I do want to see Deadpool still maintain from the point it is. And I also feel like that Deadpool needs to stay separate from the rest of the MCU. I shouldn't say that it shouldn't be in the MCU. It still is within the same universe, but I don't really want to see him in, say, the Avengers films or any of the crossover films. I think it'd be okay if characters from the MCU decide to make a cameo. I think that would be appropriate. I think that it would be okay to have some, like I said, cameos, like, you know, have Robert Downey Jr. show up in the Deadpool movie. Okay, yeah, that's cool. It might be interesting and a little bit of a culture shock just to see maybe him throw out a couple, you know, a couple F-bombs or something. It just for the shock value be kind of funny. Maybe get a really straight-laced character to just show up and do that. I mean, it would be outlandish to have like Captain America show up and drop the F-bomb, but you'd get that shock value anyway. But anyway, also the big thing that I'm excited about too, and the fact that Disney's going to get this, is I was a little concerned when I heard that Comcast was a front runner, because of the fact that Comcast owns Universal, which of course Universal Orlando has a Marvel section within one of their parks. I don't want that Marvel section in that park anymore. I really want to see, as a Disney World fan, I really want to see as much Marvel in there as I can get in there. Right now, we're just kind of stuck with really Guardians being allowed in the parks, and I believe Doctor Strange is a possibility too, but we can't get any of the other core characters. And I was a little concerned that, with Comcast getting it, then we could have had live action X-Men, Deadpool, and all of that at Universal, and I just don't feel like they would do a very great job with that. And I would prefer not to see that. Now, I don't think that this is going to open up a possibility for X-Men or any of them on the East Coast, just because I still think that they'd probably have all the red tape with Universal to get them in their parks with Disney. But they are opening a lot of Marvel stuff on the West over at Disneyland, the California Adventure. I would really be excited to see that, we can get live action X-Men characters at Disneyland. So someday I'm going to make it on the West Coast and get out to those parks. It's on the bucket list. Finally, with the Disney closing the deal with Fox, Star Wars distribution should all be with Disney now. Now, I mean, the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, the distribution rights still sat with 20th Century because they were the production company. I mean, Lucasfilm produced it, but they distributed it. Biggest hope is that Disney just listens to the fans. Just please Disney, just give us the theatrical cuts of the original trilogy. I'm not saying that we don't have to have the special editions ever again. I would just like to see a release that includes, and it could include both. I don't care. I just want the theatrical cuts. If you want to pretty them up, digitize them, make them look really nice and crisp, great. Do that. But I want Han to shoot first. I don't want to see the poor CG Jabba the Hutt in Episode 4. I don't want to hear Vader say no when he's throwing the Emperor down the shaft. I just don't need it. I don't need all the extra fluff. I don't need George Lucas's second take on these things. I just want the original. And if you're listening, Disney, which I mean you're not, but hey, I'm just putting it out there. That's what I really would like to see. All right, on my final note, just yesterday I had seen that a trailer with some gameplay footage and an announcement was dropped for Megaman 11. Now, Megaman is undoubtedly one of my favorite franchises of all time, particularly the classic series in X. Not a big, Megaman, not a big Zero series fan. Not that I don't want to say that I'm not a fan. I just really haven't played it, or the Battle Network series, or NT Warrior, any of that stuff. Got a little bit too crazy for me. Even the X series got a little bit much for me, starting with the 5th one. But from the gameplay footage, I think that this looks pretty good. I think it's a fresh look for the series, but still kind of looks classic enough which is good. I liked that it really did look retro enough to still be led by the old people, and I think it's got enough of a polished look for newer gamers to probably enjoy this too. Now, I do have some concerns. I have concerns that this is Capcom doing this, and Capcom hasn't really touched the Mega Man series for the better part of a decade. In the last two releases, I played 9 a little bit. I didn't really like the fact after the fact that it kind of went back to the 8-bit look. I understand what they were kind of going with, but it really wasn't. It didn't jive with me really well. One of my biggest concerns with 9, or my biggest beefs with 9, was just the difficulty level of it. It felt harder than any of the NES Mega Mans that I had played. Particularly the weighted, the difficulty of the enemies. I felt like the difficulty of the enemies was still weighted upon having the charge shot. So I mean, it took a lot, and you didn't have the charge shot as Mega Man in 9. You either didn't have the charge shot as Mega Man, or you had to pay DLC to have Proto Man, who did have a charge shot. But I felt like everything took way more shots to kill than it needed to, in comparison to, say, enemies in Mega Man 1 through 3, which didn't have the charge shot in it. So difficulty level was a problem there. It kept me from playing 10, because I felt like I was going to probably have the same experience when they released 10. I've been told that it's less difficult. I do need to pick it up and really play it. Now with 11, I could see that we had the charge shot back, which is good. So, I mean, that'll probably make that situation less of an issue. Anyway, big concern about this is that it's not the original team doing this. Because Keiji Inafune, he's since left Capcom. Went on to create Mighty Number 9, which we're not going to go into detail about that, because most of the internet knows how they feel about Mighty Number 9. In my personal opinion, it's okay, but it's no. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe being in the hands of Keiji Inafune, Mega Man could have been not what we wanted too. So, honestly, I'm curious to see how this turns out, and what it really means for the future of the character. I know that we're getting, there's been talks about a TV series for a while, and the design for the cartoon character, not a big fan of, but I'll take it. I'll probably watch, the pilot and see how I feel about it. If it's anything close to how they did a good job with Castlevania on Netflix, then it should be good. Which, if you haven't watched Castlevania on Netflix and you are a retro gamer at all, I highly recommend it. It's pretty graphic, but it's good stuff. I guess final thoughts. Mega Man's it's a good series, and I'm excited to see what it does, and I'm hoping that maybe this kind of opens the door for some more stuff with the X series. I'd really like to see the X series kind of take back to its roots. I felt like it kind of went off it just went in a different direction that I would have liked it to have, particularly once it kind of became like hybrid 2D, 3D, and we introduced Axel and some more character arcs, and it just got really convoluted. And I kind of enjoyed 1 through 3, where it was kind of the same basic ideas, classics, that we just kind of changed some characters around. We have animals instead of human men characters for the bosses, and instead of Dr. Wily, we have Sigma, but it's essentially always Sigma as the bad guy at the end. And don't get me wrong, there were some plot points that I felt were interesting that tied the classic series to X and I thought it would be best to just keep continuing off that. I'd like to see them eventually hit the point in the classic series where it kind of cuts off where X was created and Zero were created, and there was just a period where the the robots of the classic series kind of went away, and then we finally unearthed the Reploids, and it goes from there. But anyway, that's some final thoughts on that. Just in closing, I just wanted to say thank you for watching, or watching. See, I'm still used to doing videos. Just thanks for listening, and I would just like to hear you guys' thoughts on this, leave some feedback, and I will be back on for the next session, and I will be seeing you then. HeiseNerd out.